We're ready to go.
All right. So let's just jump right into it. So thanks for joining us for a session on C3 AI Agentic Process Automation. And in this session, we're going to talk about some of the new features we've enabled on the C3 AI platform. But just wanted to first orient folks on what we do at C3 AI and some context around the company. We're an enterprise AI company. Really, the focus of the company is helping our customers unlock value from AI at scale. And the way we do that is through applications. So we have a number of pre-built applications at C3 AI. And then you can also use our platform to basically build net new applications. And we do this across industry verticals, across domains, applications that use traditional machine learning as well as new AI agents. And so that's what you're seeing here in this slide. So with C3 AI, you can unify data systems. Along the bottom, you see traditional data sources, ERP, CRM systems, et cetera, as well as non-traditional ones, whether it's imagery, it's sensor data feeds, it's geospatial data, and then external data, weather, social media, et cetera. You can basically bring in all your data. The claim to fame at C3 is really an ontology layer, an object modeling layer. So you can bring your data in, transform it, or virtualize it. And then what's really cool is that bottom layer, unified object models / ontologies. And I think there's growing recognition that a semantic modeling of an enterprise is crucial to unlocking AI at scale from either applications or just through agents and workflows. And that's really the core, if you will, DNA of C3 AI, this ability to not just manage data in a catalog or have a catalog. A lot of companies provide data catalogs. But really at C3 AI, we're focused on this ability to model that data in these object models. And then on top of that, you see in the platform layer, there's the ability to fuse the data. We'll show you this in the software demonstration. Provide AI ML at scale, apply agents, and apply workflows. So all of that is core to what we do. We've built a number of pre-built AI applications. And you can see these applications actually interoperating on the right-hand side with AI agents and workflows. In the enterprise world, we're probably one of the first companies, if not the first company, to apply agentic AI at scale. It goes back for us over 3 years, over 4 years. And this is core to what we do. We actually have the patent for enterprise AI orchestration using agents. And these are our applications. So we have the Asset Performance Suite, Supply Chain Suite, Sales and Marketing Suite. Those are probably our best-selling app suites. And they're fully extensible. They're all using ontology objects. You can remix them. You can extend them. You can make them your own as an enterprise. And then we have other suites that you see below: financial services, defense and intelligence, sustainability, healthcare, et cetera. Some of our customer logos, obviously not exhaustive, but just give you a sense of who we work with. And it's many of the world's top and iconic companies in their industry verticals. Folks like Cargill in food manufacturing, Baker Hughes and Shell in oil and gas, the US Air Force in defense and intelligence, et cetera. So these are some of our large-scale AI deployments on Azure. So companies like Dow have standardized on us across all of their operations. Companies like Shell, GSK in the pharmaceutical world, Nucor in steelmaking. And we help them in core operations. So we help them manage their manufacturing, manage their production, upstream assets, and supply chains. So to give you a sense of a typical timeline, this is Shell, and this is just talking about one specific application, which is reliability for their refinery assets. And we started with one asset, which is Pernis, which is the largest refinery in Europe. And you can see how this scales then across a global enterprise like Shell, and it unlocks over $2 billion in annual revenue for them in increased production by doing such a project. The scale of it is enormous, but the value is also enormous. And that's the kind of those are the kind of projects that we really focus on as a company. So here it's a 5% asset availability increase with C3 AI reliability. Nucor is another really nice example. There they're using us for the core manufacturing process, and we've applied an AI layer across everything from their raw materials to their finished goods. Dow is another very interesting example where we're unlocking over $1.5 billion in annual economic benefit across their value chain. And it started with furnaces for them, so we were trying to improve uptime of furnaces. This is a disguised example from a pharmaceutical company where really the platform up here, we started in supply chain, but now we're the platform for supply chain, manufacturing, finance, R&D, commercial, and you can imagine a value unlock that's exponential in its nature. As soon as you model supply chain in our ontology and our object model frameworks, those objects are reusable for manufacturing, they're reusable for finance, R&D, et cetera. So that's C3 AI in a nutshell. Now let's talk about agentic orchestration. This is another core area where companies come to us. There's a lot of companies providing AI agents, but very few that can do agentic orchestration for really mission-critical, high-value applications with high accuracy. And that's what we focus on. So here, for example, you see our planning and execution AI agent that's interacting with a human querying a fairly complex question for inspections in a specific refinery in the last 6 months. What were the delayed jobs? At C3 AI, because we're fully ontology object model aware in our agentic frameworks, those queries can get passed through the semantic layer in fairly granular ways for information retrieval, structured, unstructured data, for visualizations, interactive visualizations, for invoking smaller machine learning models. All of those are in scope, all of those are dynamic, with business logics, web search, with judgment. So all of those can actually be played together. And that's really the heart of the patent that we were one of the first to realize the potential for agents. And I think we might have filed this in 2022 or 2023, I forget which, but we were awarded the patent in 2024, before agents were all the buzz. And since then, we've been furiously working on very high quality agent frameworks, as well as agents themselves that are domain aware and specific for our verticals. And then what's really new in the last few months for us, and we've been working on this for a year, is the formal release of our agentic process automation product. And we were also able, early on we recognized that agents are great, but agents in the context of workflows are really powerful, where we can combine the best of human reasoning together with the best of human level reasoning together with business rules and logic. Now, if you just use raw logic itself, you're in the RPA world, as you guys are very well aware. Rules-based automation is super brittle, though, and you don't have reasoning capability. So this is an example on the left-hand side of just an invoice processing workflow with RPA. And it's inflexible, it's complicated, there's a lot of edge cases that have to be managed. The same approach with our agentic process automation, just to give you a business example in the back office. It's just 3 agents. You have a first agent that extracts and validates data, a second one that matches relative to purchase orders, and the third that processes payments. Each of these agents in our world is automatically object model or ontology aware. So it's very, more flexible, more scalable, fewer edge cases, fewer human escalations. Here's one for an RFQ request. This is a common use case that we encounter in supply chain, where a customer may request a quote, and you have to put in an approach to actually build that quote working with a subject matter expert, and it's fairly complicated. And here's that same RFQ process with our agentic process automation with these agentic workflows. It's a much more simple as well as a much more powerful capability with C3 agentic workflows. We can dynamically understand the query and then orchestrate where the information is and help put together that quote that's actually going to meet the business requirements. So that's the concept here with this agentic process automation product. Okay, so let's go into it a little bit more in a deeper. The first concept here is natural language to workflow. So we didn't want, you can build it up granularly, click, drag, drop, that sort of stuff. But the whole idea was I want to be able to express the workflow just in text, and I want to be able to do it without being an engineer, without being a programmer. As an end user, I want to be able to do that. And so that's the ability. And then the ability to go beyond rules to determine whether a step is rules-based or agentic, that the system itself will do that. Full enterprise orchestration at scale of being able to invoke ontology objects. All logging and monitoring, so it's full, transparent, trustworthy. You can calibrate the performance of the entire system. We have the Eval tools to actually do that on the back end, and then the ongoing monitoring. And then the ability to also have unstructured outputs. This was requirement that really emerged for us as we talked to a lot of customers over the last year is a lot of what people are doing with these workflows is also generating these document document templates or document outputs, unstructured outputs. And you can do that whether it's formal documents or emails or Slack messages, whatever it might be. Those are often outputs of such a process. So here you see an example of describing that business process in natural language. So for example, this is a heavy industry example. So for every new alert on a machine, research and summarize the sensor behavior 24 hours before, and then take some action, for example. That could be what I'm asking the system to do. The AI agent then will, our dynamic agent will then take its best guess at then formulating that workflow, and it will structure that workflow. And then you can edit that workflow, by the way. You can talk back to the agent and say, hey, I don't want to do this, I want to do that instead. And then once you do it, you can formally publish that. And then I can share it with my colleagues. Workflows are automatically also versioned in our system. And then what's cool is workflow triggers are also automatable, so I can have that workflow run asynchronously upon events. So every time a new alert comes in, it's, again, ontology aware, so it'll monitor that alert object. If there's a new alert coming in, it's going to trigger the workflow. Or it can be done on a cron, on a schedule, or it can be done on demand. The last thing I will cover here is the concept of human-in-the-loop review. So if there's a need for a human to review a workflow step, the workflow our agentic process automation capability will actually formally just automatically build a form and then expose that form to the end user. And then the form is dynamically rendered. So it's generated by the agents. In this case, you're seeing a work order form, and it'll wait asynchronously for the human to approve that step. So those types of things are also very useful for enterprise deployments. Okay, so with that, I want to hand over to my colleague John to actually walk you through a few demo flows that are kind of interesting. And we'll use the supply network visibility and planning capability here as a way to demonstrate that. But first, we're going to do some technical work. We're going to connect to data sources and actually set up our supply chain object model. So over to you, John.
Thank you, Nikhil. So as we mentioned, everything in C3 AI starts with our ontology layer. So we'll start in our AI Studio product, looking at data fusion related to a specific application. Let's see if this is actually playing. I had to start playing it. So here we can see we're in data fusion, looking at our data sources available. We've connected to Snowflake. We could be connecting to an Azure bucket that we also see down there. And many different data sources all mapped into a single ontology related to our business problem here. So for supply chain risk, we're looking at things like purchase orders. We actually have shipment data. We have things around our suppliers and item master data. Everything that we would need to start making critical decisions around what inventory should I be getting, which suppliers should I be working with, what purchase orders do I need to make. So now that we have the ontology layer set up, right, which is kind of the data foundation we need to make any of these business critical decisions related to our supply chain, we need to start bringing some intelligence into this. So the moment you publish data for an application as part of this ontology layer, our C3 AI planning and execution agent is already aware that new data is available, and we can start taking action on it, such as identifying suppliers and parts that are late and helping to identify alternatives. So we've launched the application that's associated with that same ontology, and I can start asking it just about suppliers that have the most delayed shipments. So I can identify maybe at-risk suppliers and think about, should I change who we're working with for getting certain parts? And it went through that pretty fast, but it actually, at the top, it generated a plan. It reasoned over their ontology. It said, hey, we need to go look at our purchase orders to go see which ones have been delayed over the last year. It's going to automatically generate a query against our ontology, and then also give us a visualization to help clarify that to the user. So I can now see a bar chart showing days delayed or shipments delayed related to each of our suppliers and start to identify risk signals in the system. So again, just by connecting to data, our planning and execution agent's already giving you this layer of intelligence on top of your supply chain data. Now, leading into workflows, I can now start to use this in a repeatable way by saying, let's take that same supply chain agent and ontology that we built, and I actually want to do this on an ongoing basis. I want to identify suppliers where we might want to reconsider who we're using for this certain part. So I want to find which supplier has the most days delayed. Let's identify items that they're supplying. Let's find lower cost alternatives that we have relationships with based on, again, what's coming through our purchase order data or other data in our supply chain system. And now that we've identified that, let's actually draft a note for a quote from the new proposed supplier, with the expected increase in units and maybe asking for a bulk discount as we increase our relationship with them. And what you saw as I did this, so I typed in that kind of prompt on, here's the process I want to go through. And the workflow agent generated a plan of breaking that down into a repeatable business process. And then after it generates that, on the left-hand side, we can see our new workflow. And it's using that same agent in a multi-step process to identify supplier, find those items that are a risk, and then send a note to that new supplier. And now that I'm done building, I can start to interactively run and test this before I actually automate it. So if we look at the run process, we'll start to see a lot of those same capabilities that you saw from the agent beforehand. So the first step is find suppliers with most delay. So again, we see kind of that similar bar chart that we saw just from our agent. It's able to reason over the data just by giving it that instructions, and I can get a breakdown of, what at the time I ran this, which suppliers are the most delayed. And again, it's giving me all of these nice visual representations based on the data in my ontology and based on the instructions I gave it in that workflow. And then you can see it keep going through each of the steps. So it's finding the products related to that supplier now that we know which one is kind of the at-risk one where we should reconsider relationship. It's giving me a cost table. So for the items that we have from them, let's look at other suppliers and what their cost is. And then it finishes that by synthesizing it all into a note that I could send to our procurement team around engaging with that new potential supplier, highlighting both which product, how much quantity we're looking for, and when we want this to start. So just to recap all of that, started with ontology. You get a pre-built intelligent agent as you publish data into that domain-specific ontology. And then you can start to compose this into repeatable business processes that you want running within your organization and start automating some of those ongoing activities with agentic process automation. And then the last thing I'll show you is we have exposed all of our agents and workflows directly through the Copilot interface. So this is actually showing the same supply chain agent, but I'm now interacting with it through Microsoft Copilot. So you can give a central pane of glass of posing that same question to Copilot, having it orchestrate to C3's industry-specific agents and workflows, and bringing the user right in context to the same information that they want to see. That's it for demo.
All right. Thank you, John. So let's move to Q&A. We can show you more demos, or we can just open it up to Q&A. Any questions?
Back.
Back. No, it's built by the agent. So the question was the repeatable workflows, how they built by humans as functions, or is it built by the agent? So let me back up. So what you saw here was a natural language prompt, if you will, that the workflow agent uses to build the workflow. And what the workflow agent is doing underneath the hood is it's writing an ontology object in C3 AI, which represents an agentic workflow object, which is in our type system, in our domain-specific language. The agent is aware of our DSL and is basically writing it as almost like an algorithm, if you will, a sequence of steps. There is also an SDK to that. So if you wanted a programmer to do that manually, or you wanted a developer to do that manually, you could access that SDK and write the same thing through the SDK. But in the example, I think what's really cool about this is the agent itself can author its own workflow steps. And then once you're happy with what the agent has done, you can also edit it by talking to the agent further. Or you can always access the SDK at any point and do it by hand. Yes. So then that gets saved as a static workflow. And the workflow ontology object versions it, it saves it. It is access controlled automatically. Also the execution calls are handled by that ontology object behind the scenes. Yeah.
How does the deployment architecture work? Like once you build the workflow, can you also take out the agent to deploy it over the Foundry kind of an environment where you have more guardrails and everything set up, observability guardrails? Or this will be an independent product where you have multiple environments set up.
Yeah. Sorry, could you repeat the last part again?
The last part is, will you also be setting up dev, QA?
Yes. Great question. Our platform is a full stack solution. It deploys inside Azure, but it's really designed for the end-to-end life cycle for these types of applications. So we haven't shown you, but maybe if you can plug in your real computer, we're happy to do it live. We have the full environment for all the logging, monitoring, guardrails, traceability, corroboration for very data-intense agentic AI applications. That's kind of our claim to fame. And so we have the full stack available. We also support the agent protocols, whether it's currently it's MCP mostly. So if you want to invoke our agents through other agents in Foundry, you can. But the system is really designed to be standalone from Foundry. It can interface with Foundry, but it's an independent product from Foundry, if that makes sense.
How is it being offered as a SaaS, a fully managed SaaS, or
Good.
can it also be deployed within the private network?
Both. So we have full SaaS offerings, but for many large companies, we deploy it within the private networks. It's actually, the entire stack is available, the platform is available through Azure Marketplace. So you can go to Marketplace and just access it, set it up from there. And it will deploy inside your Azure cloud. An entire C3 AI deployment, think about it as a Kubernetes node pool. We call it a cluster. And then you can have dev and QA clusters. Usually they're combined, and then a production cluster, a separate one. And then there's a formal promotion process. What's also really cool about the way we do this stuff is when we're writing ontology objects, they get written and they get source controlled. So we have full version control. And so for complex applications, you're going to have agents, you're going to have algorithms, you're going to have data objects. You need unit tests, you need integration tests, you need the full DevOps process. We also manage all of that behind the scenes. And then you need full NOC type teams, operations teams that are watching your application. So we have the instrumentation for all of that. Things like action profiling, where a major action will cause multiple child actions, and then you're monitoring the status of those actions across the Kubernetes node pool, hardware profiling. So we've done all of the hard work so that the developer building these types of applications doesn't have to worry about all of the complexity. It's just like a PaaS for them, sitting on top of Azure. It's an application platform as a service on top of the Azure platform. So we're trying to abstract the complexity. So that's what John is showing you, the live product right now. So this is the interface into our platform. It's called Studio. So you can see along the left-hand side, we have a home screen, we have apps, you have your environment management inside Azure, you have your full release management inside of Azure, and you have your admin. Now, These can integrate fully with various other processes that you might have inside Azure. But if you don't have those processes, some customers don't have anything, they say, hey, just take care of it for me. Others want to more tightly integrate into their processes, and they can do that. Now, when he's clicked into one application here, this is a financial services application. When I click into that application, I see the details of that application. I can see the environment, who it was created by. I see the server version in this case. And then what's cool in the way that we formulate these ontologies is we call groups of ontologies, we call them packages. And it's a concept similar to Node.js, where these packages, basically, you can have package inheritance. And so what do I mean by that? So in our world, if I build a supply chain package, for example, I'm modeling your supply chain function in an organization, I then want to have that supply chain package talk to your customer service package, because it may be, or I might want it to talk to your demand modeling package. And so I can have this package inheritance where I can mix in these objects. And then I have all of my recent activities. And along the left-hand side, we have the ability to integrate data, the ability to set up your ML, set up your agents, set up your workflows, monitor all of this stuff, monitor all of the jobs, et cetera. So when he clicks on the Data Fusion tab, now he's seeing your sources on the left-hand side. If you click Add Sources, you'll see there's hundreds of sources that we've pre-built here that you can just bring in, click, drag, drop, and integrate in. Or you can write your own connectors. And this is not just API-based. This is, you can do batch connections, you can do virtualization, you can do stream, all in the same interface. It's really cool. Now, once you look at the data sources and you've set your data connections up, the next thing is integration. How do the data sources actually get landed into the business ontology objects that are describing the business? And we glossed over that a little bit. We just got to the point with workflows. But the idea here is from the source all the way through all the transformation steps, you can actually map your ontologies into destination types. It's your internet. Is it working?
Slower.
So sorry, we're on the system internet here. This is a pretty complicated ontology. It's built for a bank. There's hundreds of objects here. I don't know, maybe just skip it if it's not loading. I don't know if this is going to load either. So here, you can use my phone.
There we go. There we go. It's just a little slower.
Okay. So you can see there are really a few hundred objects in this ontology, but there's everything from markets data. So maybe you search for an account just to give you a sense of one of those objects. So you can see there's all the properties, there's fields in that object as well as methods. And on the right-hand side, you can see those types of things. So it's a very, very flexible system. And this is really the magic. So once you model your data in this way, then you can unlock a lot of value through algorithms, agents, workflows, et cetera, on top. So long-winded answer to your question. Sorry. Anything else?
Last question from me. Sorry. Now that you're joining, I feel like you're joining the process automation league, right? Where it's a covered area.
Yeah. Yeah. Pega. Yeah. Yeah, great question. So look, the convergence of this really happens for us because of agents. So we started with thinking about how do we build applications to support business users, applications in supply chain, applications in manufacturing, reliability, customer care, and we have a suite of those applications today. And what we realized over the last decade is each application has very complex workflows. So if I'm triaging an alert in my reliability application, it's a 15, 20-step process with novice users interacting with experts, people approving a work order, approving a case, all that sort of stuff. And each of those workflows end up being, you need to customize them for, it's different for Shell, it's different for Exxon, it's different for Baker Hughes, the way that they think about and manage work, it's different for Boeing, it's different for whoever else, right? And then with agents and with now agentic workflows, our realization was it's much easier to customize this. In fact, the business users can customize this themselves, and they can instead of an application developer having to set up some custom flows for Exxon or for Shell, you can actually have the process engineers themselves declare their flows. And so that's the opportunity that agents give us, which in the past we were never able to do in the world of applications. Now let's switch to the RPA folks, Automation Anywhere or UiPath or whoever else. They were never even in this game, right, in the past, because they're just trying to manage your payment processes, or they're trying to click screens, click things on the UI page. So they were never in the world of managing supply chains or managing equipment. So they were never in like the high value use cases. They were all in the efficiency use cases. I feel like with agents, these two worlds are now converging. And so that's the opportunity. So we come at it from applications. People like Pegasystems come at it from workflow first. We're meeting in the middle, and it's going to be really interesting. I think it's really a cool opportunity to see how all of these things collide. I think there's many use cases. People still need applications, right? Businesses, the world has not, the apps world has not gone away. In fact, it's gotten stronger in some ways because the applications themselves are getting much more powerful with these agentic capabilities. They're much more flexible. UIs can be rewritten on the fly. Dashboards can be redone on the fly. But humans are visual. We need an interface to interact with software. And then now we can attach workflows to this interface. So it's going to be really, really fun time. Any other questions? All right, so with that, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the session. And find us at c3.ai, and just let us know how we can help.
Thank you all.
Thank you.